shore.
It's the age-old problem. How do we get the kick to work with the bass? How do we get them to work together in harmony without treading on each other's toes? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I'm doing in the EQ zone. And EQ is key to this. Compression plays a role, and if you're in EDM, you know, and you have the chance to do sidechain filtering, that can be fantastic. But EQ is the thing that will work the best for you here, making the two biggest elements of your low end, the kick and the bass guitar, work in harmony frequency wise. So let's pull up, I've got a bass DI track, so one track from my bass and actually one track from my kick as well. So I'm going to pull up the channel EQ for my bass DI, and I'm going to pull up the channel EQ for my kick. So let's have a little look at these two. So you can see down the bottom in the sub region of the bass DI channel, we are completely cutting all of those subs. And the reason being is that we want the kick to completely inhabit this area. I don't want two elements in the very powerful sub frequency range. I don't want two elements competing at all there. So I'm leaving it exclusively for the kick. Now, as you can see, going over to the kick EQ, I am still cutting a lot of that because a lot of that you can't hear and you can't even feel. All right, and it's just adding flabbiness and it's eating away at my headroom. It's just negatively going to affect my mix. So I'm cutting up until the point where I can feel it and hear it. But generally, my bass drum or kick drum is operating in that sub-region, is the only thing that's present in that sub-region. And what you'll see is that we boost the bass further up in the frequency range to compensate, to give it that presence in the mix. So going up a tiny bit further into the kind of low range, above the sub range, you can see in the bass DI, I am still cutting. I've got a low shelf cutting, and this varies from track to track. This is the one thing that I would always kind of A/B test and trial and error to see exactly how much I want to take away. But basically, I'm pulling away to taste, depending on the relationship I want between the bass guitar and the kick drum. Now, looking up a bit further, we've got this bell cut. All right. Now, this cut is to take away a bit of the bass around the fundamental of the kick. Now, for my kick drum, the way it's tuned, the fundamental is around 120 hertz. Okay, so I'm just doing a little cut, 2 dB cut, just to make space for that fundamental of the kick. Now, you're probably thinking, my God, you're prioritizing the kick completely down in the low regions. Now, I guess in the lower regions, yes, I am, okay, because I believe the kick is the most important element of the mix. All right, the bass falls slightly below in the hierarchy, still very important, but slightly lower. But the reason why this works is the bass has some fantastic frequency content higher up the frequency spectrum, okay? You don't actually, when they're working a lot in a track, there's a lot of kick, there's a lot of bass. You don't need all of those low lows. Now, don't get me wrong, if there was very little amount of kick within my mix, I'd probably actually automate what I'm taking over the bass. So when there's not any kick going on in the mix and it's just bass guitar, then I would have all of these lower frequencies, all the sub range, it would all come back. And then as soon as the bass drum comes in, I'd take it away again. But yeah, there's some fantastic frequencies higher up the frequency range where the kick actually doesn't sound so great. So that leads us on to the next part in the mid range, where I'm taking away a lot of my lower mids. Okay, you can see I've got this massive cut, 4.5 dB on this particular mix, 350 hertz. I'm taking away all of this flabbiness. Now, this is a very common procedure with the kick, and you probably do this even if you didn't have a bass guitar part in your mix, because the frequencies in this range tend to sound pretty horrible on a acoustic kick drum. But it's even more important to get rid of them when you have a bass guitar part in there as well. Okay, so what this does is it takes away a lot of frequency content that sounds awful in the kick, but it sounds pretty damn good in the bass guitar, and it gives that space for the bass guitar to shine. Now you can see I'm doing a tiny little cut here in the bass guitar because I didn't like these particular frequencies on this mix with this bass guitar sound, 366 hertz. But what I'm doing, let's get rid of these two. Further up the processing chain is I am First, imparting some harmonic distortion, and I'm boosting the mid-range frequencies with this particular plugin, the Decapitator. Fantastic distortion plugin. So that's the first thing that's adding there, and then I'm going into the Putec MEQ5 and I'm boosting at 700 Hertz. So that's giving us a lift a bit further up, and it's really helping the bass to cut through. And I think that 700 is a fantastic boosting range, 800 as well, for the bass guitar. It really sings at that point. All right, so let's have a little listen of the two elements in solo. And in the mix.
Gonna handle offshore.